Have you ever heard a voice when you were completely alone? Not a memory, not a dream, but something real, breathing, whispering, just behind you. Tonight, we're going deep into a story that was never meant to be told. A story buried for years, in the quiet little town of Hollow's End. And if you think the worst thing in the dark is what you can see, you haven't met what lives there. The kind of thing that doesn't need to touch you to kill you. It just calls you by your name. Elena Marks was not the kind of woman who scared easily. She'd been a crime reporter in the city for nearly 6 years. Murders, accidents, fires, she'd seen it all. But the letter in her coat pocket, this was different. No name. No return address. Just 5 words written in uneven block letters. They are whispering your name. The paper smelled faintly of smoke, like it had been near a fire. She didn't know why, but the moment she read it, she felt cold. Not the kind of cold you feel on your skin. The kind that settles in your bones. The road to Hollow's End was narrower than she expected. Her GPS lost signal 10 miles back. Now it was just her headlights carving 2 pale tunnels through the fog. She noticed something odd. No birds. No crickets. No hum of distant traffic. Just the crunch of her tires on wet gravel. The trees on either side leaned in unnaturally close. Gnarled branches twisting overhead like skeletal hands. At one point, she thought she saw something move between the trunks. But when she slowed down, there was nothing. Her dashboard clock read 4:47 p.m. But the light looked more like evening. The clouds hung low and heavy, pressing the sky down against the town. When she finally saw the crooked wooden sign. Hollow's End, founded 1874. The paint was peeling, the wood warped with rot. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. The diner was the only building that looked alive. A faded red neon sign flickered above the door, buzzing softly. Inside, it smelled of burnt coffee and fried onions. The moment Elena stepped in, conversation stopped. It wasn't loud before, just a quiet murmur of locals eating late lunches. But the sudden silence was sharp enough to notice. She took a seat at the counter. The waitress, a tired woman with a name tag that said Lydia, poured her coffee without asking. Elena, I'm looking for someone who might know about an old letter. Lydia, without looking at her, don't know anything about letters. From the corner booth, an old man with sunken eyes kept staring. Finally, he stood and shuffled over. His voice was little more than a breath. Mr. Garvey, get out before nightfall, or you'll never leave. Elena, what's that supposed to mean? But he just shook his head and muttered. The hollow takes voices, and it never gives them back. When she pressed for more, he retreated to his seat. His hands trembling as he picked up his coffee again. The Hollow's End Motel looked like it had been built in the 60s and forgotten ever since. The sign out front had missing letters, so it read simply, HOELEND. Her room was small. 1 bed, a nightstand, a single lamp with a crooked shade. The carpet was damp in one corner. And the air smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic. She unpacked, trying to shake off the unease. By the time she crawled into bed, it was past midnight. The sound woke her gradually. At first she thought it was the plumbing. A faint, steady noise, almost like running water. Then it shifted. The sound was too soft, too deliberate. It was words. She sat up, heart pounding. The whispers were coming from the walls. She pressed her ear against the plaster, and her blood ran cold. It was her name. Over and over. drawn out, like whoever was speaking was savoring each syllable. She jumped back, grabbing her phone, fumbling for the flashlight. And the moment light filled the room, silence. No voice. No sound. Just the low hum of the motel's old refrigerator from down the hall. She barely slept after that. The next morning, she went to the local library. It was a squat brick building with dust-covered windows. Inside, it smelled of paper and something older. Like the scent that comes from opening a long-forgotten trunk. The librarian didn't ask questions when Elena requested old newspapers. She just slid the microfilm reels across the counter and went back to shelving books. Hours passed as Elena scrolled through decades of headlines. Over and over, the same pattern appeared. Local woman missing, search called off. Boy disappears near Hollow Woods. No leads in mysterious disappearance. Not one body ever found. Not one case solved. Then she saw the testimony from 1969. A man named Daniel Hayes, one of only 2 people to ever return. He claimed he'd been walking home from the mill late one night when he heard his mother's voice calling his name from the woods. She'd been dead for 12 years. When he didn't answer, he said the voice grew angry, and it didn't sound like his mother anymore. His final line in the interview made Elena's skin crawl. If you hear them, don't speak back. The moment you do, they take something from you, and they don't give it back. As she left the library, the sun was already sinking. The air felt heavier, and in the distance, she thought she heard her name again. Like the rustle of wind through dry leaves, but now, standing at the motel window, Elena could make out words. Her name. Over and over. A soft, coaxing hum that seemed to come from inside her skull, yet also from deep within the trees. She pressed her palm to the glass, the motel parking lot stretching out before her, bathed in the orange glow of a flickering street lamp. Beyond that, the woods. Just a dark, solid wall of black silhouettes. She could barely make out the path leading into them, but she could feel it pulling her in. Elena, the voice was feminine now. Warm. Familiar. She froze. It was her mother's voice. Her breath hitched, her chest tightening in disbelief. No, no, you're gone, she whispered to herself, shaking her head. But the voice came again, clearer this time. Come to me, please. It wasn't just the sound, it was the tone. The exact way her mother used to call her when dinner was ready, or when she'd scraped her knee as a child. It carried comfort, safety, love. Her legs felt weak as memories crashed into her mother's laughter, the smell of her perfume, the way her arms felt around her on cold nights. The motel room seemed to shrink, its stale air pressing in, until the only thing she could focus on was that voice. The whispers promised her something impossible. If she came to the clearing, they would bring her mother back. The rational part of her mind screamed at her, it was a trick, a trap, but grief is a heavy chain. She sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the blanket until her knuckles whitened. Tears blurred her vision. She thought of all the things she'd never gotten to say, the years stolen from them. The ache in her chest grew unbearable. Elena, the voice was closer now. Not outside. Not in the woods. Behind her. She spun, heart pounding. No one was there. Her breathing came in short gasps. She glanced at the clock, 3:03 a.m. Outside, the street lamp buzzed, then went dark. Now, only the forest remained visible. Waiting. Her body moved before her mind agreed. She grabbed her coat, pulled on her boots, and The world felt utterly still, like the moment before a snowstorm. With each step toward the woods, the voice grew sweeter. The promise more vivid. Her mother's smile flashed in her mind, perfect, radiant, alive. And with every echo, Elena's doubt began to fade. By the time she reached the tree line, she was no longer sure if she was chasing the voice, or if it was pulling her. The clearing appeared suddenly, as if the forest had peeled back to reveal it. The moonlight poured down in a pale, almost bluish glow, washing over the figures standing there. At first, she thought they were statues. Dozens of them, men, women, even children, motionless in the grass. But then, one shifted. Slowly. Her breath caught. Their faces. No eyes. Just smooth, pale skin where eyes should be. And mouths locked and wide, frozen screams. Her stomach churned, bile rising in her throat. The whispers she'd heard before now formed a terrible chorus. Some voices begged for help. Others laughed in low, broken tones. A few spoke her name. Elena, come stand with us. Her knees buckled, and she stepped back, but the ground felt wrong beneath her boots, soft, almost pulsing. She scanned the faces again, her eyes darting from one to the next, and froze. One of them looked exactly like her mother. Same hair. Same mouth. But the skin was stretched tight, and where the eyes should have been, there was only pale smoothness. No, Elena whispered, shaking her head violently. You're not her. The figure's head tilted slightly, and from its mouth came her mother's voice, perfect and warm. Help me, Elena. Please. I'm trapped. Her hands trembled. Her brain screamed at her to run, but her heart was shattering. The whispers wove themselves around her thoughts, each word laced with longing. The truth slammed into her too late. They didn't want her to join them. They wanted her to replace one of them, so they could be free. The ground beneath her gave way without warning. It didn't crumble like dirt, it opened. Like a mouth. She fell, clawing at the grass, her scream ripped from her throat and swallowed by the blackness below. The air grew colder, heavier, pressing against her like water. Something brushed past her legs, long, skeletal fingers reaching. She kicked wildly, her nails breaking against the slick walls as she slid deeper. Elena, the chorus of voices followed her down, warping, twisting, until they became her own voice, calling someone else's name. A sudden jolt, she landed hard on something soft. Breathing ragged, she turned her head. She wasn't alone. Dozens of pale shapes shifted in the shadows. Some crawled, some floated just above the ground. All of them, faceless. One reached out, its cold hand grazing her cheek. It spoke, not in words, but in a rush of feeling. Hunger. Loneliness. Desperation. She tried to scream again, but the darkness stole the sound before it could leave her lips. The next morning, the motel room was empty. Her car sat untouched in the lot. But if you walked past the edge of the woods and stood very still, you could hear her voice, calling your name, turning the forest into a golden blood haze. Elena grips a flashlight in one hand, her phone in the other. Every step feels like it's pulling her deeper into something ancient. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and old leaves. The wind moves through the branches above, making them groan in a way that almost forms words. A shape flits through the corner of her vision. She spins, nothing but swaying branches. She forces herself forward, following faint voices drifting between the trunks. Sometimes she thinks they're ahead. sometimes behind. Then, silence. A twig snaps somewhere unseen. Elena steps into a clearing littered with cassette recorders, dozens, maybe hundreds. Some are old and rusted, tangled in vines. Others look brand new, blinking faintly in the fading light. She kneels beside one marked Diana, taken 1974, and presses play. A faint woman's whisper, "Please, help me." Another recorder, Lucas, taken 1989, then static, then a sudden, sharp scream. Her phone buzzes, she didn't touch it. The voice memo app is open. The record button glows red. She plays the file. It's her voice, "Come see, come see." She never said those words. Something moves between the trees. Too tall. Arms too long. Elena raises her phone to film, but the camera feed distorts, colors invert, shapes blur. Her battery drops 20% in seconds. The screen flashes wreck in blood-red letters. The figure speaks, using her own voice. It repeats sentences she's spoken over the past week, including one she whispered in bed last night. "I wish I'd never come here." She runs. Branches whip at her arms. Behind her, the thing tries to laugh in her voice, but it's wrong. Elena slams her motel door, locks it, shoves furniture against it. Curtains drawn tight. The voices seep in, not through walls, but directly into her head. They start telling her childhood secrets, the fight with her mother the night before her mother's fatal accident. The whispers shift into her mother's voice. "Come back, make it right." She curls up on the bed, clutching her head. Morning. A knock at the door. Mr. Garvey, the elderly motel caretaker, stands there, eyes bloodshot. He says his wife vanished in the hollow in 1973. He's been warning people ever since. Once they have your voice, he says, they can walk in your skin. You'll vanish. No one will even remember you existed. He warns her. You'll hear them in your dreams. When you answer, you're theirs. Elena notices his lips aren't moving. The voice she hears isn't coming from him. Desperate for normalcy, Elena goes to the only diner in town. A waitress named Holly greets her warmly, but something is off. When Elena asks how long she's lived here, Holly replies, "Oh, I've always been here." But her voice trembles, like two recordings layered over each other. As Elena leaves, she glances at the diner's wall of old photos. Holly is in a picture dated 1975. She hasn't aged a day. Back at the motel, Elena tries to sleep. She wakes in darkness, her phone recording again. Playback reveals breathing, then her own voice whispering names she's never heard. Daniel. Martha, the boy in the well. The shadows in the room lengthen unnaturally. She sees herself, standing in the corner, smiling. Mr. Garvey appears again. Or, something wearing his shape. He offers a way out, return to the hollow and give it someone else's voice. She refuses, but the thing laughs, her own laugh. The motel walls dissolve into the forest. She's back in the clearing, surrounded by recorders. A fresh one sits in the center, labeled Elena, taken 2025. Her hand moves to press record, and she can't stop it.